Welcome to the Natural History Cupboard. Come on in.
And welcome back to the Natural History Cupboard podcast, the place where the weird and wonderful parts of the natural world come together. I'm your host, Gareth, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Aaron. I almost completely forgot who you were there for a second.
I often do too.
What have you been up to?
Not much. Not much. No, I've done something. What have I done?
You've done things, been places, seen people.
Yeah, where have I been? I can't remember.
Presumably breathed, eaten.
Yeah. No, well, I know I went. Where did I go? Can't remember. Doesn't matter.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
There was something to do with birding because I know that, well, not dinoing, because I know that I've seen plenty of modern extant dinos this week that I can mention. Actually, on that subject, there's been almost every morning a pair of ravens outside the front garden, just kind of
lucky you.
flying around, squawking, cawing, or whatever you want to call it. That's been very cool. House martins are back, which I mentioned the other week, but it's been nice to watch them. They're bringing back food for their chicks, which is cool. Yeah. But I've been somewhere and I did some dinoing. Just can't remember where it was.
Been somewhere, done some things.
My mind has gone completely blank because we've hit record.
Fair enough. Well, I got to admit, it's my last week as a lecturer. I'm heading back into the world of zookeeping. So that's a change, you know.
It's an evolution.
Yeah. Well,
Morpheus.
I think it's basically on the. I don't know. It's a sidestep. I don't know. Go with it what you will. But whilst looking out the window of one of the buildings at the college, you could see down onto one of the other roofs where the lesser blackbacks have got their chicks.
Oh, yeah.
The ones that are armored underneath some solar panels that they've put on the roof. So they've got like a whole roof section over their nest, which is brilliant. But the chicks have now, or the eggs have now hatched, and they're nice, big, fluffy chicks now. And they're just quite quite nice to look at. Big, fluffy herring gull chicks, blackback chicks. That, and today myself and Drew were looking at some very small, newly hatched out cinnabar moth caterpillars on some ragwort. So,
cool.
Yeah, really pretty caterpillars that are black and yellow, stunning things. Keep an eye out on that in the weeks to come, because there may be something to do with those. But yeah, that's pretty much all I've been up to. You know. So should we head into the news for this week?
Jump straight in.
Yeah.
It's the news.
Right, well, we're into this week's news. Aaron, you're starting things off. So what do we got?
So first up this week, it comes to us from phys.org, and the headline is "Overlooked Lizards Emerge as Key Seed Dispersers in Madagascar's Unique Forests." So the unique cauldron of biodiversity that is Madagascar didn't start off as an island. It broke, as you probably know, from the African continent some 88 million years ago. But it wasn't bereft of life, and research by Kyoto University, published in the journal Biotropica, reveals that whilst less than 10% of lizards consume fruit, those that do have such a massive effect on seed dispersal and plant colonization that places like Madagascar probably owe a lot to them.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go with another seed disperser, slightly larger than a lizard. This is the news from Bangkok News, Globe Bangkok News. Wild elephant named Palai Bayang Lek took an afternoon stroll out in Khao Yai National Park and wandered straight into a small grocery shop in Mu Sai Pak Chong yesterday. I have butchered all of those names. But basically just it was a kilometer from the park's entrance. And this is a fairly decent sized Asian elephant that just wandered into a local shop and started helping himself to whatever he wanted, really. Shoplifting these days, it's ridiculous.
But certainly has evolved.
You can hear in the background of some of the video that I've seen of this, of the shop owner like trying to shout the thing out. But
shoo.
there's no way he's moving that thing until it was good and ready. But yeah, no, he basically went after his snack spree for more than 1,000 baht in damages.
Whoa.
Now, is that a lot?
Well, no, it's just, I mean, like, if you convert it into our money, I mean, I'm a little bit.
I don't know
out of
what the
date.
exchange rate is.
It's not a lot, like, but that's quite a lot of fruit that you could get for that.
Fair enough. He spent over 10 minutes munching away through fruit and veg before finally being persuaded to leave. So
Before finally finding the milker or had milk.
yeah, well, there you go.
Second from me is from Live Science, and it's hammerhead shark falls from sky in South Carolina, interrupting disc golf game. So in Britain, it rains cats and dogs. Over in Splinter City disc golf course on Myrtle Beach, it rains hammerhead sharks. The young shark.
So did you say this is Florida?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a Florida man sort of style. Florida has the weirdest news.
The young shark had been caught by an osprey who, whilst flying over the venue, managed to drop it close to where visitors were playing. So yeah, that would have been a sight.
That's brilliant. So sticking with North America from Trending America, this is research that shows that pronghorn antelopes are among the most remarkable of North America's grassland species, which we already know. But their vision is about 10 times sharper than that of a human's, allowing them to spot the smallest movements on the horizon. But on a clear night, their eyesight is so powerful that they may actually be able to see the rings of Saturn, a planet that is more than 746 million miles away.
That's pretty intense.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's
I mean, I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, just sort of like, I can see everything.
I wonder what, like, if they can see a wider array, like how many cones they have then and stuff, and because that affects like color vision and stuff. Anyway, final headline for me comes to us from Sci News, and it's the news that paleontologists unveil Europe's most complete skull of stegosaur. Upper Jurassic beds in, I don't know how to pronounce this one unfortunately, but Teruel in Spain have offered up a fantastic skull specimen belonging to a long-dead stegosaurian dinosaur, Dacentrurus armatus. The find is an incredibly exciting one for paleontologists and dinosaur fans, given that stegosaurian skulls in decent condition are few and far between. They really are an extreme rarity. And I'm just going to try and pronounce that again as Teruel.
Oh, right.
Teruel.
So my final one for you comes from the Queensland Conservation Council, which sounds like some sort of superhero thing. Queensland Conservation Council. But this is the rare footage capturing a racali attacking a large cane toad and essentially biting specific holes into it to be able to eat its heart and liver without touching the toxins that is present in the toad. To give you an idea of what a racali is, it's otherwise known as an Australian water rat, or sometimes known as a native otter. They are a large rodent native to Australia, but they are like that long. They're big rodents, like a muskrat in some ways.
Yeah.
But yeah, they've now learned how to take down cane toads without being poisoned. So
that's impressive.
Life is finding a way.
Yeah, very good. Speaking of life is finding a way,
yeah.
The main article this week is a bit more of an opinion discussion piece.
Okay.
So, Jurassic Park Evolution 3. I refuse to call it Jurassic World Evolution 3. Jurassic Park Evolution 3 has released its announcement trailer. Have you seen it?
Yeah, it's all right.
Really? It's just all right?
Well, I don't really have that much of an opinion on it, other than I have Prehistoric Kingdom, so I don't need it.
Ah, yeah. I was going to say
I have a better game
for some reason.
Does it better?
For some reason, I thought you said I have Planet Zoo,
and I do have Planet Zoo. I was going to say
there's no dinosaurs in Planet Zoo.
No.
No, the reason I brought this up is because there's been some significant changes. Did you notice?
Yes,
you can finally breed the dinosaurs.
Yeah,
they're now babies, juveniles, which got me very excited.
However, they've not talked about whether they're going to have ontogeny, as in you'll have babies, but is it going to go like as it does currently in Planet Zoo, all of a sudden your baby animal goes from being baby to full-grown adult in sort of
Oh, there's no growth stages
no,
I didn't know
but in
that.
Prehistoric Kingdom there are growth stages, and
Mm.
I mean, this is just going to be me gushing over that game, but there is now like a slider that you have when you create your animal, and you can pick exactly what point in
Yeah, I
ontogeny you
think we've
want it to
mentioned
come
that
out as,
before.
which is really nice for from just being able to make a nice mixed herd of different ages. So if you want it to make it look realistic, I suppose it's quite useful for that. But you
Mm.
can't breed them as of yet in that game. But that game's still not out. Like it's still
It's in beta
it's still
testing.
beta, yeah. So it's I mean they keep adding updates to it, so it keeps getting better in my mind.
Yeah, see, that's where the so I got very excited at the fact that you can now your animals can now breed, because that's one thing that the other two Jurassic Park evolution games didn't do.
Yeah.
Is something that I really didn't like, because one of the main kind of things of the movies is that oops, they can breed. Um, but it also got me excited because of one. What's the? Do you know which movie I think is the best Jurassic Park movie?
You're probably going to say The Lost World?
Okay, so you answered it a little bit differently than I expected you to. Jurassic Park is the best,
Right.
but The Lost World is my favorite.
You're going to say that because of the juvenile
The
T-Rex.
juvenile T-Rex looks great. It looks
Mm.
just like the one out of The Lost World. So I'm really quite stoked for that. However, what you say about was it Prehistoric Kingdom? That is what I wanted to come on to, was
Mm.
Prehistoric Kingdom. Now, I haven't played it and I don't know a great deal about it, but what I do know is that it puts this game to shame. Despite the
Easily.
improvements in graphics that Jurassic Park Evolution 3 has got, I do find it a little bit irritating that you're still, and I understand why.
Well, it's a franchise.
Yes, it's
You're
the
not talking about
licenses.
you're not talking about realistic dinosaurs. You're talking about Jurassic Park dinosaurs.
Yeah, but
So they're
I mean
always going
that's
to look in that style.
there's a fairly big market demand for the Jurassic
Yeah,
Park
yeah.
dinosaurs, but the
But
problem
they're not
is
realistic.
the licensing. Like, it's still going to be as uncustomizable as the original game
Well,
was.
this will apparently have modular building to an extent, but it still won't be
It
anywhere
still
close.
won't be
No.
like that.
So
So
I mean, it'll be a serviceable game. The only reason I had the original one was because of Operation Genesis, which
yeah, it
was
was a good game.
the forerunner to that, which I've still got for PC somewhere. And then when I had it on Xbox, it was a perfectly usable game on a console. But
Mm.
once you'd completed it and built as many parks as you thought you could, it just became a bit samey after a
Yeah,
while.
it's
And
very very
the animation was nice. The fact you could get down and drive a vehicle through your enclosure, and that was nice. And I
It's the
assume that
same
this
as
would be probably similar as well.
very similar to Zoo Tycoon 1 and 2. It
Yeah.
was very repetitive.
Yeah, it gets to a certain point where you can't do much, and because everything was a building, you plonk the building down, you
Mm.
can't do anything else to it. That's it. So
Yeah.
you'd make your main street, you make your shopping area, you'd make your facilities, and that's all you could really do. And it got the challenge modes were good, and I think I completed everything on it
Mm.
to be able to get all the achievements on it, which got ridiculous at some points where you'd be building, you'd have your island, and all of a sudden 6 tropical storms would come in and every single dinosaur would get out, which, yeah, all right, that's the main premise of the game, I suppose. But now, as why I like Prehistoric Kingdom, although the one thing I think Prehistoric Kingdom does need that it could take from this game is the dinosaurs attacking people.
Oh yeah.
And Planet Zoo
each
doesn't
other.
have that as well. Yeah. So I would like to see predator prey interactions that would be realistic, and I would like to see predator on human interactions that would be realistic, because if you're keeping a T-Rex or a Spinosaurus or any large carnivorous animal and it gets out, there is always a chance it's going to be aggressive.
Yeah, because that was one thing when you did your Iguanodon creature
Mm.
feature, and you really put that nice kind of footage from Prehistoric Kingdom in of iguanodon and a couple other species. I think you had like an Acrocanthosaurus.
I was gonna put a carnivore in there and have it come across, but he put it.
But he just literally ran.
I put it in the same thing, and it just ran off.
Which didn't make any sense.
Yeah, so I left that out of it.
But anyway, I probably won't get the game because it's going to be. This is the thing with a lot of like your FIFAs and that, like, they come out every year and they're exactly the same as last year, and I get that feeling from this Jurassic World Evolution 3 game. The improvement that I'm super excited about is that your animals can breed now. That's something I always wanted. But other than that, I think I think maybe Planet Zoo would be better off bringing out a different. They're called Frontier, aren't they? Yeah. Frontier should bring out maybe a side Planet Zoo game that is for prehistoric animals, like Planet.
They're probably held by some license where they can't do that, I'd imagine.
Probably if they've got a license with Jurassic, with the Jurassic
not allowed to do.
But it's a shame because that Jurassic franchise, as much as I love Jurassic franchise, it limits them and hampers them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just thought we'd open the pop culture corner briefly for this week and talk about some
real nerdy for a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, I haven't played it for a while, so I need to get back on there and play it.
I can't remember if I said this, but I will say just one other thing is that the graphics are notably better than
still look good.
Last 2 games.
But yeah. Well, that's just a generational thing with all these sort of things, bits. Well, there you go. There's our main article for this week. If you've got any articles you want to send in, please do so through many of the different channels, which our Facebook page, Twitter, email us, or even send it to us on YouTube. So that may then end up becoming our main article or one of our headlines for this week. But that being said, shall we head into this week's creature feature?
Yeah.
Let's dive in.
It's the creature feature.
Right, well, we're into this week's creature feature. Aaron, I think we would both agree that the UK is not renowned for its reptiles to most people.
I'd say I don't want to say average person, but amongst the lay person, yes. I don't think the lay person would think of it. And I include people who would be actually semi-interested in wildlife. I think they'd be able to name the adder and the grass snake.
Yeah, that's the usual ones that you'd end up probably coming across is those. However, well, I mean, if we were to look at some of the different reptile inhabitants, we certainly don't think of any members of the chelonian family, the tortoises, turtles, and terrapins. But there are a few. None native currently at the moment. We do have introduced species like the red-eared slider and some of the other species of terrapin, which if you live in and around like London, there's quite a few of them there. Basically, pets that people have dumped into the ponds. In fact, there was one fairly recently last year or earlier this year that turned up in the River Tor, a rather badly beaten up terrapin. And the thing is, they don't do well in our waterways and they don't do well for our animals. There are no native tortoises. There is the thought, and I certainly go with this, that the European pond turtle was at one point native to the UK. The European pond turtle, you could count as probably our only native freshwater turtle, I think, but it's not the freshwater we're looking at. We're actually looking at one of the most impressive sea turtles that there is around, and well, it is the largest, and I think by far the most impressive of all of these, and that is the leatherback turtle, Dermachelys coracea. Now, this is the largest turtle on Earth, hands down. It is huge. It's one of the most fascinating marine reptiles in existence. And unlike its hard-shell relatives, which is most of the other members of the chelonian family, the leatherback gets its name for the fact that its shell is soft and leathery, actually.
I was going to say, the first part of that name means skin shell, doesn't it?
Dermachelys, yes.
Yeah, but what does the second part mean?
Well, sorry, we'll get on to that. We'll get on to that.
Spoiler territory.
So, yeah, I mean, there are a few species of soft-shelled turtle. The Florida soft shell, the Chinese soft shell, but none of them are, anyway, like this. This is a completely different looking animal, giving the species its common name, the leatherback turtle, basically. Now, these ancient mariners can grow to be impressive sizes. Adult leatherback turtles typically measure between 1.2 to 1.8 meters in length. They weigh anywhere between 250 to 700 kilos. That is a big animal. And they are, well, remarkable for the fact that they fuel themselves almost entirely on jellyfish. So a 700 kilo animal is eating something that weighs, well, it is mostly water, but we'll get onto their diet in a bit. So some exceptional individuals have actually been recorded at over 900 kilos, and that's a monster.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a big animal. Leatherbacks can also live for approximately 45 to 50 years, although some may have survived longer in the wild. We don't really know. We don't know a huge amount about these animals because they are mysterious and they spend a lot of time out in the open ocean where it's very hard to study them. Now, you were asking about the name, Aaron. The scientific name, Dermachelys coracea, comes from the Greek and Latin root derma. If you've been to a dermatologist, it means skin, and chelis meaning turtle. Now, the leathery carapace is basically covered by the coracea, which is Latin for leathery, reinforcing the same characteristics that this animal has in its name. So yeah, it basically means leather skin shell turtle. Yeah. So yeah, pretty much not as, this is no Pyrrhocorax, but it's still pretty good. So other distinguishing features about this animal's shell is it's tough, it's flexible, and unlike that of any other species of turtle. If you were to describe what it looks like, it's essentially, I tend to think of it like an upturned boat, like a small tinny, which would be the Australian equivalent, small little dinghy that's got lots of little ridges that run along it. That's basically what their shell looks like, these series of little ridges running along their shell, which is, they are this beautiful blue color with little white spots, a bit like a whale shark in some ways, in what they look like. So I wanted to have a look at a year in the life of a leatherback turtle, because this is the best way to really sum up this animal. Now, each year, leatherback turtles undertake one of the most extensive migrations of any marine animal on the planet. They travel often over 16,000 kilometers in a round trip between their nesting grounds and their feeding grounds. Now, after nesting on tropical beaches, such as those in Trinidad, Gabon, Costa Rica, pretty much this sort of equatorial region across the Atlantic, female leatherbacks will return to the ocean and begin a long journey northwards or southwards, depending on the hemisphere that they're in, essentially. Although we tend to think, or when we look at where these guys are going to migrate to next, we're going to look at the northern hemisphere because there is a British connection with these animals. So mating season essentially happens during the spring and early summer, with the animals mating near their nesting beaches. And depending on the region in the Atlantic, mating can usually occur from March to July. Yeah. So males will never return to land after hatching, but the females will return to the same sandy beaches to lay their eggs that they themselves were born on, a behavior known as natal homing. Now, that's the same with all turtle species or sea turtles, certainly, where the males will not come back onto land. There's no need to. They weigh too much. And if you've ever watched any documentary with turtles coming back to lay on the same beach that they were born on, you'll see that it takes a lot of effort to get up onto the beach, especially if you weigh anywhere up to 900 kilos. It's a lot of weight to heave. There we go. to get up onto a beach. Can't speak tonight. But yeah, they're big animals and it takes a lot. So
as soon as you take yourself out of the kind of
buoyant fluid,
you've not got that almost moon-like gravity to help you.
So gravity isn't your friend in that situation. So then they're nesting and egg laying. This basically happens with the females nesting every 2 to 4 years, laying up to 7 clutches per season, spacing out around 10 days between laying. And there can be a clutch of around 80 to 100 eggs, though some may contain more, some may contain less. Of these, usually only about 60 to 70 are viable or fertile eggs. It's basically a numbers game, because if you've ever watched any documentary with a turtle hatching out, those babies have got to get from that nest on the beach. They've first off got to dig their way out, and then they've got to get across essentially a gauntlet of everything that wants to eat them. So nesting typically occurs at night on tropical beaches, like say in the areas where you'll find these guys, like Trinidad, Gabon, Costa Rica, that sort of place. The incubation period is around 60 to 70 days, depending on the temperature of the sand and the environmental conditions as well. This is where climate change is having a drastic effect on sex determination, because leatherback turtles and most other marine reptiles, and certainly even things like crocodiles as well, are temperature dependent when it comes to the ratio of boys to girls. Warmer sands of anywhere between 29.5 degrees, and I'd love to sit on a beach that's 29 degrees sand. Actually, I mean, I've stood on some beaches like that. It's hot. It's hot. Produce mostly females, whereas cooler sands of 28 degrees produce mostly males. So you could understand that the animals themselves will basically dig their hole to lay those eggs in to try and get the best sort of mixture of both, and hopefully not get one sex over the other. Because if you start getting far too many males, you start ending if you get too many males, you end up with a situation where you've got an imbalance of one or the other. So this is where climate change is having an issue on these sort of things. So this is the brutal bit as well. The survival rate for any of the hatchlings is incredibly low. It's estimated that only 1 in 1,000 to 1 in 10,000 hatchlings will survive to adulthood.
Didn't know that.
And that's why it's a numbers game. And that's just natural predation and you know, just being able to survive without even adding in all the human elements that can affect these animals. So everything basically wants to eat them, and the threats are many and varied. So predators can include things like ghost crabs, fiddler crabs, seabirds, fish, human interference from artificial lights and beach traffic, ocean hazards, including plastic pollution and fishing gear as well. All can add up to basically wiping out most of the babies before they even have a chance.
I'm not sure what sounds more frightening, a ghost crab or a fiddler crab.
One plays the horrific music whilst the ghost crab comes out of nowhere and gets you. So when do the hatchlings migrate? Well, basically after emerging from their nest, migration's on. It is. Boom. That's pretty much their internal clock telling them to do this. They'll make a rapid dash for the ocean, guided by moonlight reflecting off the water. Once in the ocean, they enter a period called the lost years as well. Now, like I say, these animals are pretty much a mystery, because during this period, we basically don't know very much about them. They just sort of disappear. It's very hard to track a very large animal. It's even harder to track a really tiny animal. So migration begins almost immediately as the hatchlings are carried out into the ocean currents to basically live out in the pelagic nursery habitats where they will find food and grow. And that's basically their purpose in life at this point, is to get big as quickly as possible. So leatherbacks will usually reach about sexual maturity at the ripe old age of 12 to 16 years of age, though some studies suggest it can actually be up to 20 years. So they've got a long time before they reach maturation. And once mature, females will basically return to the tropical beaches to nest and continue the life cycle.
So maturation is like almost half their lifespan.
Basically, yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So during warm water months, leatherbacks migrate towards cooler, nutrient-rich waters like those off the coast of Canada, Norway, and the UK. Or they will go to the southern tips of Africa and South America. These zones are basically the most food-rich sources for them to go and find jellyfish, which leatherbacks consume in huge quantities, of things like gelatinous zooplankton as well. And some of the things that are on the menu are things like moon jellies, lion manes, jellyfish, comb jellies, and even salps, which are those huge, weird. They basically look like a giant balloon animal in the sea.
Can I interrupt you a second?
Yeah.
Just because there's a story that I know of someone who we know, and I'll tell you who afterwards, but I won't name them on the podcast. They told me a story that and they're in a position for it to be true. They were involved in it, but that this is relatively new information that they came into UK waters. Not really new, but relatively. In the grand scheme of things, because one washed up on the North Devon coastline. North Cornwall, North Devon coastline. A leatherback, yeah. And they nursed it back to health because it wasn't well, packed it up and shipped it down back towards where they knew they'd come from. But they had a way of tracking it, and it came back up to the UK. And then later
that
on,
is certainly interesting.
Yeah, then later on, they later had discovered that
it was meant
part
to
of their
be
migratory route. They completely interrupted its life cycle.
That poor turtle, it was probably really confused. Well, the reason why they come here is not because of our wonderful weather, because let's face it, even the best British weather is still not 29-degree beach hot. It is in fact for the food. They're not here for any other region really. When people think of marine ecosystems that are full of food, they're actually usually thinking of things like the barrier reef and tropical marine ecosystems. But part of the reason why the water in those places is so clear is there isn't the huge numbers of plankton that you will find off the coast of Britain or off the coast of South Africa or any of those sort of cold water zones, because they are basically the food production houses of the planet. Our water is so unclear. Like if you've ever been scuba diving or diving off the UK, you'll notice that sometimes it can be like looking through pea soup.
Yeah.
Now that could be for one of two reasons. One, it could be because, well, the government and the water companies still continue to pump human excrement into the sea, but less said about that, the better. The other reason, or probably the better reason, is that it is full of plankton, full of zooplankton, and it is the reason why so many animals, leatherback turtles, jellyfish, whales, all of these animals will go to the polar regions or to the northern and most southern parts of the planet to feed. They'll only go to the tropics to give birth because there isn't as much there. But most people don't tend to connect those two things
because it's not as easy to see. When you see videos of water in our area, it's always cloudy.
Yeah.
When you see videos of water like Great Barrier Reef and other places, you see these
teeming with life,
teeming with fish. But that's not like for every one fish, there's like a million plankton. You know?
Yeah. So the waters around the UK are really important for a variety of marine life, but because of their constant need to feed on low calorie prey, you want a really low calorie diet. Go and eat a jellyfish, which is mostly water. There's almost nothing to a jellyfish, to the point where leatherback turtles have to consume over 70% of their body weight in jellyfish per day to get a net gain, which is insane. Do you think you could eat 70% of your body weight per day? Depends what in.
Depends what it is. If it's pancakes, I could probably go 110%.
You're going 70% of your jellyfish diet a day.
I can't imagine jellyfish as particularly.
I think it would taste awful. I think it would be like eating boiled lettuce or something, you know.
Yeah, I can't imagine it's nice.
So yeah, we do get these animals in our waters, which is a surprise to a lot of people. Though nesting only occurs in the tropical regions, we do find these guys as seasonal visitors to British waters, especially during our summer months, so June to September. And that's when they basically migrate to these northern regions to feed on our abundant jellyfish. Now, we do have quite a few jellyfish off the UK. In fact, you were saying about big barrel that you saw.
Yeah, massive barrel jellyfish that me and Atta saw as paddleboarding Was that last weekend?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was last weekend. Yeah.
Well, you're saying we have more and more jellyfish. That is partly to do with the fact that agricultural runoff and
Mhm.
pollution is actually benefiting jellyfish numbers to the detriment of other things as well.
Mm.
So there is an issue with that. So there certainly isn't a lack of food for these animals. But according to the Marine Conservation Society and most other monitoring groups, leatherbacks are the most common recorded sea turtle in UK waters. Some of the best places to spot these animals, and this is really high on my list of animals that I want to see.
Yeah, same.
Some of the best places in the UK are Cornwall, especially around Mounts Bay and the Lizard Peninsula, Pembrokeshire on the west coast of Wales, the west coast of Scotland, particularly the Hebrides, which you wouldn't think they'd go that far north, but yeah, right up into the Hebrides, Cardigan Bay in Wales, and the Isle of Man. These sightings typically involve individuals basically following big swarms of jellyfish, which are plentiful in these areas during warm summer months. And to give you a good idea of the sort of numbers seen here in the UK last year, here is basically the recorded sightings. So not as many as you'd think, and it's partly to do with the fact these animals are very hard to spot.
Yeah.
It's usually only the head breaking the surface to breathe, and then they just disappear back down. But in England, in fact, some of the sightings were actually here in Devon. Confirmed sighting on the 8th of August last year at Bury Head in Devon, so South Devon, down near Exmouth, I think. Dorset, a rare sighting was recorded near Shambles Bank off Portland on the 25th of August last year. The turtle is estimated to have been a 1.5 to 2 meter long individual and was observed eating a large barrel jellyfish, which would have been quite cool to see.
It would have been amazing if that the large barrel jellyfish I saw was being followed by
yes.
turtle.
Yes.
That would have been amazing.
In Wales, in Tenby, the 3rd of September 2024, a giant leatherback was spotted approximately 4 miles off the coast. The turtle was estimated to be anywhere between 1.8 and 2.3 meters in length. Big turtle, that one, and weighing around 600 kilos. It swam along the side of a fishing boat for about 3 hours. So that's pretty cool.
Chilling out.
Up in Scotland, leatherbacks are considered occasional visitors to Scottish waters. Since accurate records began in 1989, there's been about 156 sightings of turtles at sea and 74 strandings. Now, these are primarily located in the north and the west. Most of the time you're going to see these animals is on the west coast. So very much like the chough, this is an animal that will follow the west coast, the Atlantic coasts. Not so much up the English Channel. It's not as plentiful food wise, and it's sort of different currents that you don't tend. Not saying that you probably don't get them going there, but that's not their most common sightings. So, in summary, for their total numbers, the total sightings confirmed in the UK was at least 9, including the sightings in Devon and Dorset. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
One of the most amazing ones. Now, have you been to the museum in Cardiff?
No.
I would like to go there sometime.
I'd really like to.
Well, if you do get a chance to go to the museum in Cardiff, there is a fantastic display of a leatherback turtle that washed up in Wales. In fact, there's also in the same part of the museum there is a humpback whale skeleton as well.
Oh yeah.
Of a humpback whale that washed up as well. So a really interesting display about leatherback turtles.
We had a humpback 2 or 3 weeks ago off the coast here.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, one of the most famous leatherbacks in the UK is this massive specimen that washed up dead on Harlech Beach in Gwynedd in North Wales in 1988. Now, the turtle became entangled in fishing gear and specifically a rope used to anchor lobster pots, and tragically, the animal died. And this is a threat they still face today is fishing gear and loose lines and stuff like that, which they can get trapped in, as well as nets. Now, the turtle was preserved and is on display at the National Museum in Cardiff. It's over 2.9 meters in length from flipper to flipper, and weighing almost, or it weighed when it was alive, or when it was found, 914 kilos.
That's got to be the biggest. That's bigger than your average.
Yeah, it's one of the largest recorded turtles that's ever been found anywhere in the world.
Wow.
Its display continues to educate the public, and it's basically very much about the impact of marine pollution on these animals. Now, throughout their migration, leatherbacks face natural threats as well from predators such as large sharks, orcas, because if you're in the sea, you're on the menu. So hatchlings, especially, are vulnerable to, like I say, smaller stuff from birds and crabs and fish. However, adults, they generally have few things to fear. Orcas and large sharks is about it, really. There's not much else. But due to their size and speed, they have few natural enemies. You would think that their speed is not exactly great, but they can move when they want to, and they can dive really quickly,
perfectly to make some speed, because they're kind of like that
teardrop shape.
Yeah. And quite, relatively, considering how big they can get, they're relatively compact, kind of vertically too.
Yeah. Well, what sets leatherbacks apart from a lot of other sea turtles is their unique abilities to dive to extreme depths of up to 1,200 meters. That is a really deep depth. They can stay submerged for up to 85 minutes to survive the cold temperatures of this really deep water, especially in northern oceans and the extreme southern oceans as well. Leatherbacks have to have some special adaptations, and they have a thick layer of insulating blubber, a feature more commonly associated with marine mammals than with reptiles. And certainly, it's where I wanted to link it in. Do you remember last year, or it may have been very early this year, there was a hawksbill turtle that turned up in Instow? I think it was Instow or Appledore.
Yes, Appledore, I think.
And it was after, in fact, it was after that big storm that we had that trashed everything around here in February, and it washed up, and the poor thing was battered and bruised. Now, those turtles occasionally, green turtles, hawksbill turtles, Kemp Ridleys, we get all of those turtles occasionally in UK waters, but they can't survive here in the outside of the sort of summer months. And if they do get washed into UK waters, a lot of the time they just get too cold and they can't really survive and they die. The lucky ones get found washed up on a beach and get basically flown back to where they're best going to be, or taken into aquariums, basically treated like an absolute king, and then sent back to where they come from. So yeah, leatherback sea turtles don't have this issue because they are built differently. They are built to be able to dive very differently compared to their sort of, I'm going to say, they're more tropical cousins. So yeah. This adaptation allows them to maintain their body temperature far higher than the surrounding water, a trait known as gigantothermy. They are basically large enough they can hold in all of that heat.
Am I remembering it right that also the nature of their more fleshy shell allows for a certain amount of elasticity, so when they go under those pressures?
You know what? I would imagine that's probably true. I'm not sure.
Correct, but I'm not 100% on that.
Yeah. So one of the biggest, and this is the single probably biggest part of what I wanted to talk about with these animals. They are amazing turtles, and they used to form a good part of what would be one of the talks that I would give at the zoos that I've worked at, when I would talk about tortoises to the public, because I have a real dislike of plastic waste, especially when it gets into the ocean. Now, despite their resilience, leatherback sea turtles face serious threats from human activity, especially pollution. The most tragic of these is plastic pollution, particularly plastic bags and balloons. I hate balloons. Now, thankfully, plastic bags in the sort of shopping sense aren't as big of a problem anymore, because the government actually did something about it and put money on it, So nowadays, it isn't as big an issue to see a Tesco's or Asda's plastic bag floating along in the wind for it to then end up in the sea. Whereas 10, 15 years ago, that would have been one of the bigger sort of things you would come across.
It's still a
There's
massive
still an
problem,
issue, and the rest of the world around.
though.
It's not by any means solved, but it was a good step in the right direction. One of the
Yeah.
biggest issues is definitely balloons. And I say this with all niceness to people. We quite often have seen, I would imagine you've probably seen it as well, usually on Facebook groups and things like that, where somebody's died and they want to do a balloon release as a gesture to basically symbolically, sort of send to the heavens or
I've
whatever.
lost my loved one, so I'm going to kill a load of turtles. That's what you're saying.
Essentially, I'm getting there.
I'm just pulling your leg, being
So
extreme.
the issue is those balloons will almost certainly come down in the ocean,
Yes,
or they'll come down on land and
blow into the ocean
and end up in somewhere. And occasionally you do find that they will even come down into farmers' fields, and cows and sheep will eat them as well, and they'll choke on them. So they're dangerous to farm animals, they're dangerous to wild animals as well. Now, balloons and plastic bags have one big thing in common with the food that these animals eat. In the water, they look superficially like a jellyfish. Now, these are animals that are not the brightest. Most of the members of the tortoise, turtle, and terrapin family, they are not going to think about their food that much.
No,
they tend to just bite and think later. And
with the
unfortunately,
Chetonians, they bite and then they don't care. They just carry on and then carry on.
Well, if you've ever seen the inside of a turtle's throat or the back of its throat, you'll know that biting something like a balloon could just be that's it.
Yeah,
there's no regurgitating, no throwing up for these animals, because the inside of their mouth is full of backwards facing spikes.
it's like that, isn't it?
Yeah,
but in a circle, it rings
a little bit like the Sarlacc pit.
That's a good.
If you wanted to visualize it. Now, essentially, what happens is the balloon.
Old Sarlacc pit.
Oh, the old Sarlacc pit.
Yeah.
Sorry. If you imagine the plastic bag or the balloon, it gets stuck in their mouth or further down their throat, and all that can happen is it just gets further and further down until the animal basically either has its stomach filled up with these, or it ends up dying from the pollution in its throat and suffocating it. So my biggest thing that I would say to anyone who's lost someone, it's tragic. It's never great. But releasing balloons is not going to do anything. It's not going to do any good. Now, if anyone should die, you want to try and do good. You want their memory to live on in some way. The best, and I think the way that I would want to be remembered if I dropped dead tomorrow, is I would want a tree planted or something along those, some amount of trees planted to try and in memory of. I think that's a better way of doing it. Creating life, not taking further life.
Yeah.
And it's not through ill intentions that a lot of people have done this. It's just something that people have always done. Your balloon, gets away and, oh, well, don't have to think about it now.
But how do you combat that? Because this is a problem that I have. People get very funny with me. I'm lucky that Atta has been very supportive of me in this case, but I'm very anti-balloon to the point that our daughter isn't allowed balloons.
I won't buy them,
which is I feel cruel. I feel mean.
I don't know,
but that I stand by that. Now, it's a bit different when she goes to a friend or family member's birthday party and everyone's got balloons.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do. We do not buy balloons for our daughter. She doesn't have balloons on her birthday, but if she goes to a birthday party and they're giving out balloons, she can take one.
Yep.
One or two, but they're already blown up. They're already there. We're not contributing to it. And what we do is we make sure that balloon gets played with. There's a lot of keeping up. There's a lot of other things that gets played with, and we try not to pop it for as long as we can. But you get some friends, and it's a little bit rarer, but certainly there are one or two individual family members who I know for a fact have said things like either to me or within earshot of me of, that's a bit unfair, that's a bit strict, isn't it? It's not me being strict to my
No,
daughter. It's me. How do you break the cycle
well,
if everyone just keeps
you're
buying
breaking the
balloons?
cycle. You're the one who's
It's
helping to
just
break the cycle. Personally, I haven't got as much of an issue with a balloon that's just filled up with someone's breath. Although, when you think about it in that terms, here, have this plastic sack of my breath.
that's
Happy
pretty
birthday.
grim.
It seems a bit odd, but those are not going to float away.
Well, they would if you leave if the child
If you
lets
let
go
them out,
from the wind, especially
yeah.
in Devon, it's windy, isn't it? So if it
Um,
goes to the
but a
sea.
helium balloon is far
Oh
worse
yeah, the
because that will
helium
get
balloons,
up
yeah.
and it will go hundreds of miles
Yeah.
before inevitably popping. I think the best way to remember someone is to do something like say positive or something along those lines. Releasing balloons may seem like a lovely gesture, but it is just going to cause death. And the same
Mhm.
with Chinese lanterns as well.
Yeah.
Those are a whole other kettle of fish. They don't really pose that much problem to sea turtles, but they can, well, especially parts of the world where things can catch on fire,
Yeah.
that can cause a lot of issues. And as also has been recorded as coming down on cattle and sheep as well
Mm.
and giving them burns. So bad ideas. Don't do it. Please don't do it. It's like say I used to give a talk about tortoises, turtles, and terrapins, and I would end talking about the fact that those animals are out there at the moment in the sea because it would usually be midsummer at this point.
Yeah.
They are off the coast. Go and see if you can spot one from a headland or something like that. But don't release balloons.
I'm not one for like government overreach. Sorry to go you on,
No, no,
on
no.
another tangent, but I'm not one for government overreach and blanket and ban things, within reason. But sometimes I just think like life would be easier if you just
Yeah.
banned balloons. Just ban them.
Do the whole plastic straw thing.
Yeah, yeah.
It takes a really insecure dictator to basically, no, I want you back. Anyway,
We don't have to wait long for that.
so each year it's estimated that over 1,000 leatherbacks die due to plastic ingestion, which is a huge number for an animal that takes a very long time to mature
Hmm.
and already has the numbers stacked against it. Like, say, 1 in 1,000 individuals make it to adulthood. So there is the 1,000 there. So on top of that,
Yeah.
so a 2019 study found plastic debris in the stomachs of nearly half of all sea turtles examined. Balloons are basically the biggest issue. When they burst at high altitude and fall into the oceans, they become indistinguishable from a jellyfish, like I was saying. And a report from the CSIRO in Australia estimated that balloons are 32 times more likely to kill seabirds and turtles than any other type of debris. So you'd be better out going out there and clubbing them to death. It would probably be less numbers than balloons. Not saying that you should do that.
You heard it here first. If you want to stop by balloons and go out clubbing turtles.
Fine, yeah. If you can find one, yeah, go on. So, additionally, the Ocean Conservation International Coasts Cleanup consistently lists balloons among the top 10 items collected from beaches globally. And in 2021 alone, volunteers picked over 100,000 balloons from coastlines around the world, only a fraction of what likely enters the sea. So, in conclusion, this is an animal that is a true ocean wanderer, surviving against the odds for millions of years. I haven't even touched on the fact that this family of turtles, this group, it is the last surviving member of Dermacheles. They are an ancient group that have been around since the time of the dinosaurs. With its unmatched size, impressive diving capabilities, and vast migratory routes, it represents both the wonders of marine life and the challenges that they face in the ocean and the conservation that needs to be taken to basically keep them alive. And protecting these gentle giants means rethinking our use of plastics, especially single-use items like bags, balloons, and any other thing that can basically look like a jellyfish. With better awareness and action, we can ensure that leatherbacks continue their timeless journey across the world's oceans again and again and again for ghost crabs to try and pick off their babies. So end on a bad note there, I suppose.
Fit the crabs to touch them.
But yeah, they're an absolutely amazing turtle. And one day I will see one. Determined to. But yeah.
There's it's not leatherback turtles, but there's a couple of projects that I'm looking into at the moment that are like turtle protection projects that I'd like to go get involved in.
I'd love to do something
Cool.
like that. Yeah. Right. Well, let's head into our emails for this week, shall we?
Let's do it.
Bing! You've got mail. Ooh, it's an email.
Right, well, we're into this week's emails. We're going to start things off with last week's question, which was, what recently extinct animal do you think is still out there? And I think everyone was out hiding in the woods, for the sound of it, sort of Bigfoot-esque style, because we had
Everybody went extinct.
for the week. Surprisingly few people. In fact, we only had one on the Facebook page, and that's from Kelsey Watts, who said Bigfoot and hobbits. Now, I'm assuming he means Homo floresiensis, but
that is the hobbits. Yeah,
he may very well mean actual hobbits.
Actual hobbits.
You know. But yeah.
Could you stretch Bigfoot to be Homo neanderthalis? It's not really Bigfoot, but and not really any different to us in many ways. But yeah, a bit of a
short one on that.
I will say with that question though, and I did kind of have a feeling when we decided on this, it's kind of got a air of Forrest Galanty about it.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what I was going for.
I think people are starting to catch on to his BS a little bit, and they hear what extinct animal could be alive, and they think that I can't be bothered with that. I'm not getting into that nonsense. That Forrest Galanty nonsense.
Yeah. Well, anyway, this week's question that we have for you is: what rainforest would you like to visit, and why? Aaron, I mean, you've been to a rainforest. I've been to the edge of a rainforest. Not really been into a proper one, I suppose, other than...
We lived in a wiped out one.
Where?
Well, Devon.
Oh, right. I was going to say, yeah, other than the Atlantic rainforest that we're in. Although I would say that collections that you and I have both worked at, that was still actually not pristine, but it was at least... rainforest-esque in that sense, cold climate rainforest. Oh, in that sense, I have been to
not bad.
Yeah, I have been to cold climate rainforests. In tropical. What am I saying? I've been to New Zealand. That had both.
Gareth's forgotten where he's been.
I've forgotten where I've been.
At least yours is long-term forgetfulness, whereas mine is I can't remember what I did last week to answer the question in the intro.
So, I mean, well, what would be the rainforest you would want to visit the most?
There's a few.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a rainforest I wouldn't like to visit, but I was literally saying to Atta 2 days ago that I want to go to Costa Rica. And, and like you might remember that I said in the jaguar creature feature that there's a high density of melanistic jaguar there. But I want to go Costa Rica to do some work with turtles, but I'd love to go to the Costa Rican jungle. There's other parts of the Amazon that I'd like to go to.
Yeah.
I've never been to the Amazon, so there are parts of it I'd like to go to. I wouldn't mind going to. I mean, I wouldn't mind. I'd love the opportunity to go to the Congo and maybe see like great apes there. I've been lucky because whenever I think of the rainforests I've been to, I think of rainforest and I think of Taman Negara. But actually, I've been to the rainforest in Thailand too, and for some reason I always forget that when I talk about it. And that was amazing. Like we're walking through, there's these like big spider webs, huge spiders on them, and huntsmen are there obviously, as well. I would if you were to say to me, I have a load of tickets here for flights that are going to get you to a rainforest.
Yeah.
Pick one. No matter which one I pick,
you're still going to be disappointed.
No, I will be over the moon. I'll be ecstatic. So I can't really pick one, but I'm going to say Taman Negara because I fell in love with that place. I really, maybe it's because I put a lot of effort in. For the very short time I was there, I put a lot of effort in, and I don't know, it captured my imagination like very few other places have. So I think I would if I saw what was on those tickets that
Yeah.
like I would pick Tamangara. But if I couldn't see what was on those tickets and I picked one at random, I'd be just as happy.
Still happy.
Yeah, yeah.
You wouldn't feel that you've missed out.
No. Even
enough.
if I knew that
I think
Tamangara was on it after, if you turned them over afterwards and I saw Tamangara,
I mean, I'd still feel a bit like, oh yeah, no, I'd like to go that one as well. But I like I say, I've been to New Zealand and I've been to the North Island and the South Island, and slightly different versions of, I would say, somewhat tropical rainforest, more towards the north, obviously. And in Australia, like there were certain areas where you'd get what felt like rainforest. Obviously, this is in southern Australia. I'd never been to northern Australia, and I got to admit that's probably one that would be on my list. Is the Daintree rainforest. The Amazon is obviously one, just because it's like the one, and I'd have to go for where the extinct cockroach comes from as well. I think that would be high on my list to go tracking there to try and find those cockroaches. So I don't think I could pick. I think if you to present me the same scenario, which one I'd pick would be amazing, but I'd still be like, oh, I really want to go to the other one as well, you know. So that, and I'll even throw in the Pacific Northwest of like Canada, British Columbia,
of course.
the sort of cold climate rainforest of the northern Pacific.
I've always said I've wanted to go to that area of Canada as well. Yeah, so that would be one for me.
Yeah,
I have a question.
It's hard to pick. I don't think there's an easy answer.
Just a brief kind of musing. I'd like your opinion on that. Why do you think you said I'd like to go to the Amazon because that's the one? Why do you think that one has been kind of the sole focus of lay people, like of the general public?
I think it's the one that is always in a documentary.
But why is that? I don't know.
I think it's because it's the.
I mean, I know neon tetras are there, and you can't really beat neon tetras.
It's such a flamboyantly, like the species that live there are much more flamboyant. I think you've got all of those parrots that live there that are just everywhere. The fish,
parrots, the fish.
I mean, you could say the same for Africa. You could say the same for Asia. So I don't know. I think it's just for whatever reason, documentaries were made about the Amazon more than, the Congo or wherever. And I think that would be it.
It's Amazon propaganda.
Yep. Big Amazon.
Big Amazon.
More big Amazon. Anyway.
Jeff Bezos.
Well, yeah. Anyway, you can send in your answer on our Facebook page or also in our YouTube comments as well. And Aaron has got one of those for us.
We do have a YouTube comment. This one comes to us from Rosalie9961, who says, for this question of recently extinct species, I think could still be out there, or more likely hope are out there. I'm going to go with the Japanese sea lion or Caribbean
monk
seal. Both really cool. It would be a nice surprise to find such a large animal still clinging on when we thought we had lost it. Or alternatively, I don't mind answering with the trifecta of ivory-billed woodpecker, Carolina conure, and passenger pigeon.
Those would be lovely.
Yeah, they would be. Those three species have no right to hurt my heart as much as they do. I, being someone born in the 2000s, have never seen them in the wild. However, their absences just really sting for some reason. But to be fair, I'm also the person who gets sad thinking about the late Pleistocene extinction event. So maybe not best judgment with me.
I think that's fair. I think that's apt. It's an animal that we've never had a chance to see.
I often I mean, I don't get sad, but I do often feel like something's missing when I think about the end Cretaceous extinction. I think if we could have
you're wanting some tyrannosaurs around.
Well, no, because realistically, they wouldn't be here now anyway. They would have either gone obsolete or they would have evolved.
Or they'd have become something more terrifying.
Yeah, yes. But it would be nice to have more than just skyscrapers to crane your neck up at,
You want some bigger animals.
More things along the lines of elephants and giraffes, but not necessarily just mammalian big animals.
Sorry, the mammals are in control.
And the only reason we have the big mammals is because the dinosaurs aren't here anymore. So to be fair, there's that. It's just, I do get you. But like I said, I'm going to repeat Rosalie's sentiment by saying don't judge me on that, because I'm the guy that cries every time Darth Vader takes off his mask in Return of the Jedi.
Of course it was going to be that. Anyway, so that's just one of the ways you can get in contact with us. The other way is through our emails, which is the nathistorykupboard@gmail.com. Do we have any this week?
We have no emails this week.
It's been a really quiet week.
very
Whatever
quiet
you lot are up to this week, you're clearly quite quiet.
They've
Anyway.
watched the ending of Return of the Jedi and
Yeah, they're all
into mourning.
yeah, they're all bawling their eyes out.
Look at me with my own eyes. Look at you with my own eyes, I should say.
Anyway,
The tears.
now's a perfect chance to cut away to talk about our wonderful Patreons. Let's do that now.
Every week, we like to give a little love back by shouting out the names of our wonderful Patreon supporters.
That's right. These are the cupboard dwellers who are kind enough to support us through a monetary contribution, for which we are eternally grateful and grateful beyond words.
And those people are, of course, Fogtober, Jen Greenhall, Connie P, Chelsea McKee, Nick to Nick,
Owen Cox.
and Matt Geddy.
Guys, your financial contributions are actively helping us out here in the Natural History Cupboard in a myriad of ways, including developing our new studio, planning excursions and being able to go out and film on location, considering technical upgrades and actually making the jump from a solely audio-based podcast to the now growing YouTube channel. And we really can't thank you enough for that.
Now, we appreciate all of our cupboard dwellers and the support you offer us through listening, liking, sharing, and subscribing. But if you feel we've earned it and you're considering joining our Patreon, there are two options through which you can do so.
That's the Nature Nerds and the Animal Ambassador tiers, which you can find on the Patreon website or links through our social media as well. And each one having different benefits for you to enjoy.
And now back to Gareth and Erin in the studio.
So a massive thank you to our Patreons there. You help us do an awful lot more than we would be able to otherwise without you. So
Absolutely.
that pretty much brings us to the end of this week's episode. So a massive thank you, Aaron.
Thank you.
You held it together there, even though you were thinking about the ending of Return of the Jedi.
There's so much meaning in that title, Return of the Jedi.
And a massive thank you to you at home for joining us. And we'll see you next time here in the Natural History Cupboard. Bye.
Tell your sister you were right.
Anyway, it's my turn to make a bad joke.
It is your turn.
Man walks into a bar, and on his back is a woman, just sort of draped around him. She's got her hands around his neck.
Like Luke and Yoda.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, walks in. And this is to a fancy dress party in this bar. And the bartender looks at him and goes, "What are you doing? You're meant to be dressed in fancy dress." He goes, I am. He goes, "What do you mean? I'm dressed as a turtle." "No, you're not. You're just standing there with some woman on your back." "No, I'm dressed as a turtle, and this is Michelle."
I don't know what's more impressive, how bad that joke was, or the fact that we didn't have to spend 5-10 minutes looking for a joke before we did the joke.
Been thinking about that one for a while.